interpreter tonight is Njoki Shege. Now, Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja has been granted a final chance to appear in court in person on the 27th of this month or risk being held in contempt. A decision reached after he once again defied court orders on Wednesday. The IG had been summoned over the alarming abductions in the country. However, his legal team pleaded for leniency, arguing that an urgent security matter requiring his immediate attention had arisen just as he was preparing for his court appearance. The Director of Criminal Investigations, Mohamed Amin, also failed to show up, sparking outrage among the lawyers who urged the court to take action against both security chiefs. Citizen TV's Ben Kirui with the details.
Despite being granted a one-week extension, Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja was a no-show once again, defying a court order requiring him to personally appear before the High Court to account for missing individuals and explain the mysterious disappearances of 6 young people in December, 5 of whom have since been reunited with their families. His failure to appear sparked outrage from lawyers representing the petitioners. They urged the court to take decisive action against him for blatant non-compliance.
The orders were not that the respondents may be represented by any other party. The orders were they appear in person. So to that extent, my Lord, there is a contempt on the face of this court, to which, my Lord, we urge you and request you to make that observation, that the IG and the respondents that were supposed to appear before you are in contempt of these proceedings. If you remember, my Lord, in this honorable court, one of the parents cried before this court. Yes. And we still have, even if you say in the public domain, we know petitioners that are still missing and we do not know their whereabouts. We must get answers today.
Kanja's legal team pleaded for leniency, requesting that his assistant represents him in court. They cited an urgent security matter requiring his immediate attention.
My Lord, the IG is not here this morning. And the DCI is also not here this morning because as they prepared for court this morning, an urgent security situation requiring their intervention arose.
However, Justice Bahati Mwamuye has now issued a final warning to the Inspector General, ordering him to appear in person or face conviction for contempt of court.
If the Inspector General of Police misses on that third hearing date, I will go with option 1. I will cite, convict, and sentence on the spot.
The Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI boss Mohamed Amin, was also absent. Despite being summoned to appear alongside Kanja, he was also slapped with a last warning.
With respect to the Director, DCI, I will convict and invite him for mitigation and sentencing. There will be no further opportunities beyond this next hearing date.
Both the security chiefs were expected to provide clarity on the December abductions, while 5 victims have since been reunited with their families. The whereabouts of 28-year-old Steve Kavingo, who was abducted in Mlolongo, Machakos on December 17th, remains unknown, leaving his family in anguish.
We are just requesting and hoping, maybe praying wherever he is, those who are keeping him is still safe. And we are going through a lot of pain. My mom and dad, they can't come to Nairobi to look for him. They are so much depressed. So our prayer is that they are going to release him.
In a show of defiance, Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja, much like his predecessor Gilbert Masengeli, failed to appear for the second time. He has now been given a final ultimatum: comply or face the consequences. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Now, still on abductions, Bernard Kavuli, one of the victims, now says that he was shaved against his will by abductors who grilled him over his ex-posts. Kavuli recorded a statement at the Ngong police station 2 days after his release in Moy's Bridge in Wasingishu County. Through his lawyer, Shadrach Wambui, Kavuli says that he was assaulted by his captors, who warned him not to reveal details of his 15 days in captivity. Gatete Njoroge will be giving you those details in just a bit, but let's stay with the abductions for a bit. The family of 23-year-old man Valentine Lusasi Mulango is pleading with the government to assist in tracing their son who went missing on the 2nd of December 2024. The family had to break into his house where they found his mobile phone, television set and house lights still on as though he hurriedly left. Seth Olale has the details.
The deafening silence that engulfs this room, situated in the sprawling Huruma settlement in Nairobi, sends chills down the spine of Valentine Lusasi Mulongo's father. His son was last seen in this neighborhood on 2nd December 2024.
Tarehe 15 mamaka aishi karibu hapa. Mamaka anaishi Saudi Arabia. Ndiye aliniinbox akasema kijana landlord anampigia simu anamwambia kijana amepotea kwa nyumba karibu 2 weeks. Wakati nilikuja nilipata kama mlango imefunga. Nikaenda kwa caretaker, tukakuja naye tukatafuta fundi akafungua mlango. Kufungua mlango tukapata taa inawaka. TV ilikuwa iko on lakini tu standby. Alafu manguo zake kila kitu ilikuwa ndani. Maji zilikuwa hapo chafu zenye walikuwa wametumia wakimeweka pale nyumba ilikuwa inanuka.
According to Mulango's family, their missing kin who relied on manual jobs to sustain himself last communicated with his sister who sent him 100 Kenyan shillings.
Ilikuwa tarehe ngapi?
According to the police who have been tracing his whereabouts, his phone network was last spotted in Juja area, Kiambu County.
Wakati tulifungua mlango tulipata bag ilikuwa kwa meza. Hiyo bag ilikuwa na manguo kidogo na ikawa na bahasha ilikuwa na some documents. So wakati tulienda through hizo documents na passports ilikuwa ndani, huyo mtu simjui. So tukajaribu kutafuta namba zenye zilikuwa ameandika kwa notebook, tukapigia watu wanasema walikuwa wanafanya kazi Mombasa, wengine wanasema wako Western walikuwa wanafanya kazi, lakini hiyo muda yote hatujajua hata ni nani na yeye hata ako wapi hatujajua.
Mulango's neighbors describe him as a polite person.
Kwa sababu nikifanya usafi ndio alikuwa anamuona na akitoka. But masaa yake ya kuingia ndio sikuwa najua. Hakuwa mtu wa kuongea sana na hakuwa na mambo mingi. Alikuwa tu boy mtulivu.
Mara ya mwisho kumuona ilikuwa ni December. Alikuwa ametuahidi tutaonana lakini hizo siku nilikuja sikumkosa. Na sijaimwona mpaka wa leo. Nikienda kwa mlango nilimkosa. Sasa kwa mlango mpaka wa leo napata kifuli.
Alikuwa anakuja usiku lakini walikuwa wanatembea kama watu watatu. And the last time ambao nilimuona nafikiri ilikuwa Oktoba kitu tarehe 15. Nilitoka kwa club pale kufunga, alafu kisha funga club nikirudi hivi wakaingia hapa ndani pamoja. Since then sijamuona mpaka leo.
It's now been more than a month since Valentine Lusasi Mulango went missing. His family says hopes of finding him alive are quickly diminishing, calling on the government to intervene.
Wakatraka kijana, wakasema last simu kuonekana ilikuwa tarehe 5 December. Lakini record ya kuanzia pale mpaka leo wakasema system ziko na shida. Naomba serikali kama iko na uwezo inisaidie kutafuta kijana apatikane. Huyo ndio first born wangu, ako na 23 years.
Seth Olale, Citizen TV.
Now here's a story I promised you earlier and it's still on abductions. Bernard Kavuli, one of the victims, now says that he was shaved against his will by abductors who grilled him over his ex-posts. Kavuli recorded a statement at the Ngong police station 2 days after his release in Moi's Bridge in Uasin Gishu County. Through his lawyer Shadrack Wambui, Kavuli says that he was assaulted by his captors who warned him not to reveal details of his 15 days in captivity. Gatete Njoroge now has the details.
At 4 p.m. on Wednesday, Bernard Kavuli arrived at the Ngong police station in the company of his 2 lawyers. This was his second visit at the station after he first landed on Monday from Moi's Bridge, where his abductors dumped him. For over an hour, Kavuli recorded his statement at the station, giving a blow-by-blow account of his abduction and the treatment thereof in the hands of his abductors.
Our client had to experience or endure a situation that was meant to cow him, to intimidate him, to cajole him, so that he refuses, to address some of the wrongs that he sees in his country. They even visited violence on him, treated him in a very inhumane manner, which details we shall be setting down in a very thoroughly detailed affidavit that we'll be presenting before the court.
The lawyer says Kavuli was specifically questioned about his ex-posts, which were critical of the government.
He was taken in and asked questions, brutalized, beaten up because of the views that he holds as a member of the Republic of Kenya, as a youthful leader, someone who understands very well, what is happening in the country as far as the political sphere is concerned. He understands that very much. So he was being questioned around that.
Kavuli says his rights were violated as the abductors, who were armed to the teeth, shaved his hair and beards without his consent.
Our client is known to be very hairy, but you can see. You can see. And this is something that he did not voluntarily accept. He did not accept to be shaved. He did not accept to be taken through those experiences. But these are things that we shall be detailing so that we can share with the public. For the record,
having been blindfolded for the period he was in captivity, Kavuli did not recognize his abductors, who were masked.
One, he did not have an opportunity of seeing the faces of his abductors. But at the very least, he is able to recognize the voices. There were people who were masked. There were people who obviously did not want to show their identity.
He was warned against talking of his experiences to the media. Kavuli, who also appeared at the Milimani Law Courts during the hearing of a petition by LSK demanding answers from Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja over the abductions, is expected to undergo a medical examination. Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV.
Away from the abductions, Kenya's economic growth slowed to 4% in the third quarter of 2024, despite easing inflationary pressure and stronger shilling. The latest data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, that's KNBS, shows that the economy contracted by 2% compared to the 6% growth reported in the same period in 2023. KNBS Director of Population and Social Statistics, Abdul Kadir Awes, attributed the slowdown to a decline in growth across most sectors of the economy. Jimmy Mbogo has the details.
Data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, KNBS, revealed that the third quarter growth was constrained by contraction in the construction sector and the mining and quarrying sectors. Construction activities fell by 2%, while mining and quarrying recorded an 11.1% contraction during the period under review. Despite growth in agriculture, transport and real estate sectors, it was not sufficient to sustain overall positive growth. Forestry and fishing grew by 4.2%, transportation and storage grew by 5.2%, financial and insurance activities grew by 4.7%, and real estate activities grew by 5.5%. During the quarter under review, the Kenya shilling appreciated against major currencies compared to Q3 of 2023, gaining 10.1% against the US dollar, 9.3% against the euro, and 7.7% against the sterling pound. Regionally, the Kenya shilling gained 21.2% against the Tanzanian shilling and 11.7% against the Ugandan currency. However, it depreciated by 12.7% and 6.7% against the Japanese yen and the South African rand, respectively. The economy also faced challenges in the capital market, with the number of shares traded at the Nairobi Securities Exchange dropping from 424 million in September 2023 to 334 million in September 2024. Consequently, the total value of shares traded fell from 5.2 billion shillings to 5 billion shillings, signaling reduced market activity. However, the NSE 20 share index rose from 1,508 points in September 2023 to 1,776 points in September 2024, reflecting improved equity market performance despite the decline in trading volumes. Jimmy Mbogo, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Education maintains that the 348 boarding schools that were blacklisted after failing to meet key safety and compliance standards remain shut until a special audit is conducted. Now, that decision is likely to create confusion and lock out thousands of learners who had already reported to their respective institutions. Melita Oletenges has the details.
As schools reopen for the first term of 2025, 348 boarding schools are still in limbo. In November 2024, the Ministry of Education ordered them to shut their boarding sections, citing serious safety and compliance concerns. While many of the schools have made strides to meet the new regulations, including safety upgrades like removing grills in dormitories and providing fire extinguishers, the ministry says they should not proceed and admit learners until a special audit is conducted. This despite receiving a nod to reopen their boarding sections from sub-county education directors.
The story of fire extinguishers, assembly points, fire assembly points in case of calamity, which is real, it happens, that we have done. And of course directions in case of fire, which is the exit route and all that.
Citizen TV reached out to officials at the Ministry of Education who are holding firm, insisting all schools must pass another round of inspections regardless of any upgrades done.
Personally, I felt it was a reactive measure, but it has value addition. They need to do it on a regular basis, maybe every 6 months or so that those people who don't like compliance can comply.
The decision has caused confusion for parents who are now scrambling to figure out how to manage their children's schooling. They say the knee-jerk reaction from the government are adding to the confusion.
Parents are planning for the new term and then they are told that you cannot take your kids to the school. So the government needs to do much more on this. It's like they were doing it as a something that like a reactive thing. Yeah, so I would urge them to do much more so that they keep on talking to the schools, because I mean, we are in this journey together, the government, the schools and us as the stakeholders here.
The tightening of boarding school safety regulations follows the tragic Hillside and Arasha Academy incident where 21 pupils lost their lives. While the reforms are seen as a necessary step, many view them as a rushed reaction and a mounting pressure for reform in the wake of the tragedy. Melita Oletenges, Citizen TV.
Let's talk about health matters now. Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki has blamed hiccups that have characterized the rollout of the social health scheme, popularly known as Taifa Care, on huge budgetary shortfalls occasioned by the rejection and subsequent withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2024. The Deputy President says that the financial constraints, which have led to an increase in out-of-pocket medical expenses and attracted widespread condemnation, will be fixed through the injection of additional funding through the supplementary budget. Mary Mwoki has more.
Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki spent the better part of Wednesday morning at the Kenyatta National Hospital, making several stops at the bedsides of a few patients admitted at the facility. Kindiki's visit was to assess the implementation and impact of SHA, as well as get patient and healthcare workers' experiences since the rollout. Professor Kindiki took cognizance of the challenges plaguing the rollout and pledged the government's commitment to resolving those issues.
We still have 1 or 2 administrative procedural hiccups, and we are consistently resolving those hiccups to make sure that Taifa Care delivers universal health coverage. So we are working very hard to make sure that this program succeeds.
The rollout has been marred by grievances from patients who complain that despite being fully paid up members, they are still required to make out-of-pocket payments for some services. Acknowledging the concern with the crippling underfunding that has hit the primary healthcare fund, the Deputy President blamed the budgetary constraints on the failure of the finance bill, saying the rejection of the bill occasioned huge budget shortfalls across government services. Kindiki has, however, promised that the government will source for funds to support the primary healthcare fund and save patients the agony of out-of-pocket expenditure.
We are looking at ways of if, for example, through the supplementary budget, we can, again, resources permitting, adjust a bit of resources. Even with the shortfall, we will go out of our way to continually and continuously adjust our budgets to make sure that primary health care is not left out.
Elsewhere, patients at the Mururi Medical Center in Kirinyaga were left stranded after nurses at the facility downed their tools protesting non-payment of their salaries for over 8 months. The healthcare workers say the hospital management alleges that the salary arrears have been caused by delays with the settlement of claims by SHA. The facility is owed over 11 million shillings in unpaid claims by SHA. Mary Mwoki, Citizen TV.
Now, a burial in Kirinyaga turned chaotic as residents dumped the body of a murdered girl at the home of one of the murder suspects. The residents of Mahigaini village stormed the homestead of the suspect in protest, demanding justice for the slain teenager. Brenda Wanga has more.
The journey to the final resting place for the late 16-year-old Purity McKenna took a detour. Grieving and angry residents of Mahigaini and Gushue villages made a stop, casket in tow, at the home of one of the 2 men suspected to have murdered the teen girl on Christmas Eve last month. The residents of the 2 villages dumped the casket at the doorstep of one of the suspects. Their angry chants of protest caught the attention of the police, who arrived to try and calm the situation, but the anger here could not be assuaged. And soon the law enforcers were forced to lob tear gas canisters into the mob of angry mourners to disperse them. This standoff between the mourners and the police lasted nearly 1 hour. In that ensuing melee, property belonging to the suspect was destroyed. The late Purity was murdered and her body dumped near River Thibam. It is believed that the deceased was in a relationship with one of the suspects, who was also in a same-sex relationship with his boss. The deceased was later laid to rest at a parent's home in Gushue village. 2 men suspected of her murder are currently being held at the Kiamashiri police station as they wait to be charged in court. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
All right, on that note, let's take a quick break on JKLIVE. When we come back, we're going to have a conversation with Honorable Moses Kuria, Senior Presidential Advisor in the Council of Economic Advisors. There's been an advice report that has just come out now that the economy is on a slump. The third quarter of 2024 compared to the third quarter of 2023, there's a 2 percentage point difference. We'll ask him all about that, and also about his role. Send in your questions, by the way, at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag JKLIVE. We'll pose as many questions as we can to him. See you in just a bit. The economy, politics, and related matters. It's the 2025 Outlook with Presidential Advisor Moses Kuria on the JKL bench.
You know, the president is only one man. And in all systems, presidential or otherwise, it is, you need a team, to help you to think through things, to help you to analyze. And the president in this case is not actually a president, he's a participant. The kind of discussions that the president has with his team of advisors is like a brainstorm in a typical, private sector environment, or even a university or, some academic institution, so that's one thing. So, even the program that we are now implementing, as Kenya Kwanza government, was made up of, we came up with the program as a result of so many consultations. And you can go back to history, you can go back to 2021, you can go back to 2022. It was like a brainstorm of how to make a new country altogether. Yeah. So for us, it's nothing new. It's something that if you take some of our programs, for example, the healthcare, which we are implementing today, we started that program back in 2020. Okay. I remember one time sitting in the residence of the then deputy president, and we were having a cup of tea with him, discussing the first thing about what to do with the NHIF. Was in the year 2020, just the 2 of us, So it's what you do typically, that you get people to think through, you get some people to design. It's only now that when you become president, those people are called advisors. But other than that, we are just one team. Okay. We were just a think tank.
So how often do you interact?
With
the president?
Well, we interact on need basis, not regular.
So in a month,
but you know what happens? What happens, Trevor, is a project has got a life cycle.
Okay.
You start with the concept, with the vision, with the strategy, then you design. Then after design, then it's calibrated, and you do panel beating, and then implementation. Of course, in the beginning, the meetings are, you meet quite frequently in the design phase when you are trying to see what works. In the beginning of an implementation, they are quite limited. But other than that, we give it to the rightful owners.
Okay.
And the rightful owners are, the line, or the bureaucracy, the people working within government, because no matter how good a think tank is, it can never implement. You can support the implementation, you can advise on the implementation, but ultimately it's upon people who are bestowed, by the Kenyans to the responsibility to implement that gets to do it.
So where does the gap lie, in the implementation, or are there too many advisors, or are there too many levels? If there's a program that you want to implement.
No, well, first of all, this is a very good question. Most of the people who implement programs were not part of the design. Okay? So it's like I come and tell you, we design a product like this. The thinking was mine. The vision was mine. The how to do was mine. And now you have to come and implement. So I need to spend considerable time with you to tell you, why did we design this program the way we designed it? What did we intend? What are the outcomes? So I first of all have to convince you that you start thinking and behaving in the same way as someone who was there from the beginning.
Yeah.
And of course, you are not a zombie. You come with your own ideas. Well, I've seen what you guys meant, but this is my input in terms of what needs to be done to make it better. And then you let the people own it. Once they own it, once the line people own it, once the CSs own it, once the PSs own it, once people within the entire government system own it, then our work is done.
Isn't that where the problem then is? Because it's like a circumlocution.
You should discuss whether there's a problem.
Yes.
Which problem is it?
Because you're saying that first the implementers are not the people who conceived.
That's not a problem. That's not a problem. It is normal. It happens in private sector.
Okay.
I have, for me, I've done this for 3 decades plus. I've been doing advisory work in private sector for 3 decades, and that's exactly what happens. I spent considerable time, 2 decades within the banking sector, and that's exactly what we do. You design a product, and then after you design the product, you go to the guy who's supposed to implement it. He was not part of the thinking.
Okay.
Then you have to get his buy-in, his understanding, and then you have to spend as much time as it takes for him to see all, until, as we say in that parlance, until the penny drops. Once he gets the penny dropping, then he can be able to run.
But is that where the problem is? Because we've seen you even in public forums speaking about SHA, for example, just the other day. We had you speaking about that. We're wondering, is that part of your mandate, or have you...
It is part of my mandate as an advisor, because first of all, it is part of my mandate to make all the government programs work. It's part of my mandate.
Okay.
If they fail, I have failed. It does not matter for me to come and say it was PS, it was, CEO, it was, some director somewhere. I cannot come here and claim, the fifth that it was not me, it was somebody else. It is my responsibility to ensure that I make that program work.
Is your advice always implemented?
Of course, it's not all being implemented. Why should it be implemented?
So what's
do I know everything?
It's not being implemented.
I come with say, let's implement this. Somebody says, I think I will take up 70%. By the way, if my advice is taken 60%, I consider myself extremely successful.
So what is your advice now? Because we've seen the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics data for third quarter of 2024 showing a slump in growth compared to 2023. 2023, the growth was 6%. Now it is 4% in 2024, meaning the economy is heading in the wrong direction.
2024, and I've interrogated those figures, 2024 was a harsh year. You'll have to agree with me. It was a terrible year. It was a difficult year. It was a year, let's look at the external factors first of all. It was a year we started with the high fuel prices. It's a year we started with the whole issues of Ukraine, the whole problems in the Middle East. It was a year that, if I tell you something, before 2020, let's say 2020, 2021, 2022, the interest rate on government money in the US was below 1%. It was somewhere in the region of 0.5%. Within the Biden years, the interest rate was 5.5%. That is 10-fold, you know, a 10-fold growth. Now, African economies, if they would even have gone to 10-fold, even 5-fold, given where our base was, the US base was 0.5, went up to 5.5. So this is an year where not just Kenya, but the entire Africa took a lot of bashing because of the overheating, I'll call it overheating of the American economy. So the global dynamics fueled by, you know, by the interest rate, especially in the United States, going all the way to 5.5. I mean, it's madness. US dollar, government paper, 5.5, up from 0.5%. So all the monies that were here, people who had invested here, rationally, what would you do? Not just Kenya, but also all the other parts of Africa and the developing world. You take the money to the 5.5. 5.5 on US government paper, which money will ever come here? And so therefore we took a beating. Yeah. We took a beating in 2024 as a result of the dollar, you remember? It was a year of 2024 was not a good year by all means. Okay, so and we can't even present.
All factors
all factors
advice going forward.
And let me just say here, it was also the year we were coming from extreme drought, the most severe drought the country has had in 40 years. Yeah. It was a year then now that we saw the upheavals that came with the political tensions and all that, the Gen Z rising, whatever. So I cannot sit here and pretend that 2024 was a good year.
Okay.
It was not a good day in the
Fair
office.
point.
It was
all
a bad day in the
held
office.
constant. Global economic shocks, bad situation here. What is your advice as the economic advisor?
No, you know now, that's a very good question again, Trevor. I think most of my advice has been consumed. Because if you look at the fundamentals, what we have done, despite all that, two things happened for this country. Two things. One, we did not default. Other economies of our standing would have defaulted on, especially our external debt. There were fears we would default on our external debt. There were fears we would default on our domestic debt. We did not default. Am I expecting anybody to give us flowers because we did not default? It's not something you get flowers for, unfortunately. It's a thankless job. It's a thankless job, and we don't get flowers for that. But imagine the converse. Imagine if we defaulted, the kind of stake that we'll be getting right now. It's atrocious. That's number one. Two, as I've said, we came from extreme drought to very good rains. The bulk of 2024, 2023, end of 2024 especially, God has been very good for us. So two things came our way. One, we did not default because of very good policies of stabilizing. Then from there, we did things in 2024 which you don't expect, again, for us to get flowers for. All the macroeconomic stabilization issues on inflation, on the currency coming from 160 to 120, on the budget deficit coming down, dramatically, So in terms of stabilizing the patient. Yeah. So you found a patient there who was almost dying, and you stabilized them. By the way, if a doctor stabilizes a patient, people, not many people even recognize that. Okay. Yeah? Because the patient is not going out for a game of rugby or golf. All we did was stabilizing. Okay. So I would say that now from here where we are, we cannot, I think the phase of stabilizing the patient is gone. Okay. And this phase is very difficult phase, Trevor, because it's not visible to the common man. The common man will not understand that we were just about to default. The common man will not understand where inflation was. The common man who does not export, for example, will not know that the dollar was 160, came to 120. The common man only understands that his life is harder now. Absolutely now, yeah. Absolutely now, So we are that guy who have to take the body blows, which now takes me to where we are going now. Now it's about one thing, macroeconomic stability. The microeconomy is a key word. 2025, and I would say 2026 is about the microeconomy. That the only road we need to build, the only highway we need to build is the one that goes to people's pockets. That's the biggest challenge, and that's what myself personally...
For example, we cut down on the taxes. What are the practical examples?
Let's say that. Let's look at
How
this
do you
way.
get money to
Let's look at it this way.
Yeah.
We are paying today. We are paying interest. I'm not talking about principal. On domestic debt, bonds, treasury bonds and treasury bills, we are paying 750 billion shillings. On people here, tu wanaume tu hapa na wanawake hapa, people who buy bonds and bills there, most of them banks, for example. 750 billion divided by 365 days, 2 billion a day on interest. See, on principle, today.
So what should be done for that?
Yeah. So what we need to do, what I'm trying to do to tell you is not what needs to be done on that one. It's just to explain to you why things like cutting taxes now do not make sense.
So how do you get the money to the people's pocket?
Now, what we need to do is to really come up with measures on stimulus. The whole thing is about stimulus. And what you're going to find in 2025, and especially 2025, 2026 is a year of harvesting the benefit. But 2025, we are going to have policies mostly centered around economic stimulus, from wherever. And I'm going to, maybe, as we go on with the show, I'll be able to show where the money is going to come from. We're not going to borrow more, We're not going to raise more taxes than we have in terms of, how much you hit into the people's. On the worst case scenario, we maintain, equilibrium on the taxes to the people. I'm going to want to talk about taxation there.
Right.
But I want to demonstrate to you how we are going to have an economic stimulus program that puts money into people's pockets. That again spurs growth again, so that we start growing again. Now that we have fixed the fundamentals, without increasing taxes and without borrowing.
We'd like to hear that right after this conversation, and we'll come to that in just a bit so that we know how do we pump in. Where do you operate from, by the way? Where do advisors sit? Do you have an office, a location?
PO Box, State House in Nairobi.
You all sit at State House?
Yes.
All right. All right, we'll continue the discussion with the Honorable Moses Kuria, Senior Presidential Advisor in the Council of Economic Advisors. Now, 2 children were burnt to death in a house fire in Mwea East. The twins, a 4-year-old boy and a girl, had been left with their grandmother while their mother went to find a school. In Murang'a, 47-year-old Joyce Wanja is in critical condition after her boyfriend allegedly doused her with kerosene and set her on fire during a dispute over food. Willie Lusige has the details.
Tragedy struck Murinduko in Mwea East, Kirinyaga, after a fire consumed the home of a family with twin 4-year-old children. Neighbors rushed to help but were unable to reach the children in time. The mother had left them with their grandmother while she searched for a school. The cause of the fire is still under investigation.
Tulikuwa na watoto wawili ndani ya hiyo nyumba ambao wameweza kutuaga, lakini unfortunately nyumba ilikuwa imechomeka beyond recognition.
In Maragua Ridge in Murang'a County, 47-year-old Joyce Wanja is fighting for her life after being dosed with kerosene and set on fire by her boyfriend during a dispute. Relatives say the couple had a history of disagreements. Joyce was taken to Kenyatta National Hospital after treatment at Murang'a County Referral Hospital.
Fanya huyo bwana yake alikuja, alichukua mafuta akamchoma. Tukapotea, tukapiga duru, watu wakakuja kuturescue, ndio wakamsaidia.
In Kiambu County, over 50 mothers detained at Thika Level 5 Hospital over unpaid maternity bills have been released after Kiambu County government waived their fees. Many of the mothers couldn't pay after the discontinuation of the Linda Mama program.
Hii process tulikuwa tumeanzisha na tutaendelea mpaka tumalize, ndio muweze kuungana na familia zenu, muweze kurudi nyumbani.
Alikuwa na mtoto anakaa kwa nyumba peke yake. Kutoka Mungu shule hajaiona. Kutoka Mungu shule kijana wangu hajaiona. Amekuwa mkikaa kwa nyumba peke yake mpaka jana alirudi shule hajaiona. Tunashukuru Mungu tumetoka huko leo. Tuweze kuungana na jamaa wetu.
In China, a powerful earthquake struck remote part of western China, killing at least 126 people and affected over 46,000. The 7.1 magnitude quake hit near Mount Everest, destroying thousands of homes. More than 14,000 rescue workers have been deployed to help find survivors. Over 400 people have also been rescued so far. The earthquake has left thousands without shelter, but Tuesday's disaster is among the deadliest in recent years. Willie Lusige, Citizen TV.
All right, on that note, we're taking a quick break here on JK Live. Keep your questions coming. At Trevor Mbija, Citizen Teenage activity overshadowed by escalating costs and weak optimism for 2025. Dennis Otieno has the details.
The PMI, a key indicator of economic health, recorded a headline figure of 50.6 in December, down slightly from November's 50.9, but above the neutral 50 mark for the third consecutive month. This signals a marginal improvement in business conditions, supported by continued growth in output, new orders, and employment. Private sector output rose for the third month in a row, marking the first full quarter of growth since late 2021. Firms credited the increase to improved customer purchasing power, new bookings, and successful advertising campaigns. Rising demand also spurred a sharp uptick in input buying, which saw the fastest expansion since September 2022. However, the surge in demand came at a cost. Input price inflation accelerated to an 11-month high as suppliers raised fees, citing currency weakness and higher taxes. This forced farms to increase selling prices, with agriculture and manufacturing sectors facing the sharpest price hikes. Looking ahead, business optimism remained subdued, with only 5% of surveyed farms expecting output to rise in 2025. While December's data highlights resilience in Kenya's private sector, rising costs and weak business confidence underscore the challenges ahead. Farms will need to balance growth ambitions against mounting financial pressures as they navigate the uncertain economic landscape. Dennis Otieno, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Now, global experts and stakeholders in the water sector have gathered in Nairobi to address challenges in managing on-site domestic wastewater systems. Now, the Kenya Bureau of Standards, that's KEBS, has organized the second international workshop of the ISO Technical Committee 224 Working Group 8, focusing on sustainable wastewater management. The workshop seeks to highlight the transformative role of international standards, with KEBS showcasing their impact on sustainable wastewater practices.
If current trends persist, Kenya may experience a 30% shortfall in water supply relative to demand by the year 2030, which is a stark reminder of the urgency of our mission. In response, we are adopting a circular economy approach where wastewater is not seen as waste, but as a resource.
We have people from almost all continents: North America, Africa, Asia, Australia, from Europe. So we have a very wide range of experience and expertise.
We need to see where we need to adjust on time it takes to come up with standards, a specific one.
So the government is keen on developing the Kenya National Tourism Strategy 2025-2030. According to Tourism PS John Ololtua, the strategy is key in boosting the number of international tourists visiting the country, which was expected to hit 5 million by 2027, thus creating more jobs and revenue. The number of international tourists visiting Kenya rose to 2.4 million in 2024, up from 2 million in 2023, according to the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. Projections suggest that this figure could reach 3 million by the end of 2025.
Strategy is very critical in bringing up a roadmap on what needs to be done to be able to transform the tourism sector. So this is just the beginning of the process. We are laying down the roadmap. The participants are drawn from, of course, the facilitators are from UNECA. We have, of course, officials from the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. We have from our state agencies.
We want to come up with a roadmap that will guide us through this process. By the end of the meeting on Friday, we'll be very clear what we need to do. It also assigns the various responsibilities to various players as we go through this process.
So the government says that 2.6 billion shillings Shimoni port, set to be completed in March, will revitalize the coastal fishing industry and boost the blue economy. Speaking during an inspection of the project, Deputy President Kithure Kindiki projects that the port will double the sector's GDP contribution from 37 billion shillings to 80 billion shillings by 2026 and 150 billion shillings by 2027. The facility will include a modern jetty fish processing unit and cold storage. Cabinet Secretary Ali Hassan Joho highlights its potential to create jobs and uplift household incomes in the coastal region.
Tumengoja sana Shimoni Fishport ikamilike ili vijana waweze kuingia hapa, na tunashukuru pia kupitia Wizara ya Miti kampuni nyingi sasa zimeendelea kuingia Kwale, na tunaona nafasi ama opportunities nyingi za biashara ambazo zitapatikana ndani ya kaunti ya Kwale.
Hayo maagizo ambayo mumepeana yatakamilishwa bila wasiwasi, bila tashwishi. Mimi kama custodian wa wizara hii nitarudi hapa, tupambane na wenzangu mpaka kazi ifanyike. When we invite you next, Your Excellency, we want to assure you utaona kazi imefanyika.
80 billion shillings annually by next year, up from the current 37 billion shillings. And by 2027, we want to push that contribution of this value chain to 150 billion to the GDP of Kenya. We want really to transform Kenya, and fishing and blue economy is at the center of that transformation.
This is me at Stanbic Private Banking. What does it feel?
Time for some sporting in action now, and Kenya's elite junior academy has opened their CAF Under-17 Girls Integrated Football Tournament on a high, thrashing South Sudan 6-0 in the tournament being played in Tanzania. The Kenyan girls were leading 4-0 at the break.
Johnny Ogola, Emily Adhiambo, put in, swept off again by these defenders. Johnny Ogola, a good shot now, it's a good chance for, it's in. It's in play. Nyamuchi Machal lost position now. A good chance in for Kenya Elites. Jen Sakwa with a good cross. The goalkeeper loses that ball. We are going to goal. Ruth Nanjala. Good penetration pass, but blocked now. A good chance in for the goalkeeper is there, but still another chance. A good shot in. Pitch, but the ball lost again. What a turn, what a move. A good shot to find. It's a good chance in now for us. It's a goal. A good corner in, a good shot. Still blocked. A good number, no good communication. What type of goal has been scored there? Aiming to develop women's football. Enough. Let's see. In the center of the pitch. Flavia Kitenje, good crossing now. What a shot!
Now, the training facilities to be used for the African Nations Championship, CHAN, have been given a green light in the final inspection tour before the start of the tournament in 24 days' time. The CAF inspection team, led by the Director of Competitions and Events, Samson Adamu, visited the Police Sacco Stadium in the Ulinzi Sports Complex. The team is happy with what has been achieved so far. The other training venues are Kirigiti Stadium and the Kasarani Stadium Annex A and Annex B pitches. The Nyayo National Stadium is almost ready, with the floodlights being installed, while Kasarani is racing against time to have part of the canopy and the floodlights ready in time.
There's still quite a bit of work to be done in a few of the other primary stadiums that will host the event, and I have the confidence that the contractors, government officials, all stakeholders who are involved in this process and the relevant committees will deliver on the mandate. So far I think I can confidently say so good. There's quite a bit of work, of course, but we have a very competent and strong team to handle this particular event.
Harambee Stars are sitting at the top of the table on goal difference after blanking Tanzania 2-0 in their second match of the Mapinduzi Cup in Zanzibar. Harambee Stars have won one match and drawn one and will play host Zanzibar in their last round robin match.
Brian Musa ameupitisha kwa Sakari na kwa cross nzuri. Nafasi wanaandika. Brian Musa ameupitisha kwa Sakari na kwa cross nzuri. Nafasi wanaandika. Brian Musa ameupitisha kwa Sakari na kwa cross nzuri.
Now, the number of Kenyan youth playing professional football in Spain could increase in the near future if the young talents are to achieve their football dreams. The Nastic Academy in Tarragona, Spain, is home to a number of players, most notable Aldrin Kibet and Amos Wanjala, who featured for the national under-20 football team. Another emerging star is Bradley Jean-Olof, a 17-year-old in Barcelona and Spain, who wants to represent his country in the near future. Michael Kinyi with the details.
The Christmas break in December was a time for Bradley to go back to his roots in Kawangware in Nairobi, a place where he honed his football skills before going to Spain. Bradley was training with the Magic 90 team where most of his peers are currently based. At 17 years, Bradley is an integral part of the UE Son Andreu under-19 team. Hard work has elevated him to playing at that level.
I didn't expect to be where I am today, honestly. It was like more so a surprise, if anything. But my love for football has always been there, not just as a job or as a profession. Of course, I want to be professional, but it was always for fun. I've always enjoyed it. It was always something I would do.
San Andreu plays in the Spanish 4th Division and Bradley has been here for 2 seasons now. His football journey in Europe started at the Avanza Football Academy in Barcelona before joining the Captiva Sports Academy also in Barcelona. With the Christmas break in Spain, Bradley was back in Kenya and playing with his mates in Kawangware.
This is where I learned to play football. I remember being very, very young, you know, just a white little kid. We used to say mzungu or things like that ages ago. But I've always grown up here and I used to come here with this one coach of mine.
Other than football, Bradley is in school in Barcelona attending the AESA Prep Academy of Barcelona. The 12th grade student says his parents insisted on a good education to go with the football talent.
I've had many previous academy mates or just mates in general that have said, okay, I'm playing football, so let me kind of just forget about school. So my mom's always wanted me to go with school. I've always wanted to go with school because after football, you know, I'm still a human being.
In Spain, Son Andreu plays against a lot of teams in the tournaments and the league. He has played against some of the Kenyan boys at the Nastic Academy in Tarragona and had a good time interacting with them in Swahili. Now he has ambitions to play for the Kenya national teams, starting with the under-20s. His wish is for the coaches and scouts to cast their net wider to give some of them a chance to showcase their talent.
Honestly, I just love the chance to play. For the national team, that's something that I've literally dreamt about multiple times. For me, it's more so than just about myself. It's about being able to kind of represent the country.
His peers at Magic 90 are a proud lot and hope that one day Bradley's exploits in Europe will open the doors for some of them back at home.
Niseme tunajivunia, kitu ya pili tunasema ni advantage. Juu unaona yenyewe kama wewe unaweza fika pale. Na maisha mimi pia mimi nikiwa card nafika hapo kama anaweza kuwa zaidi yake.
Amewafungulia ni kama amewapatia chance pia wana feel wanaweza fika mahali pia yeye mahali amefika.
For now, it is back to school in Barcelona and playing football